Folks, we've talked about the commercial market being down 75% in transactions. We've talked about some pretty scary numbers of things blowing up, but there are deals being done. The one and only Jonathan Twombly took on a project about a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, and he's about to take on another one. His opportunity is quote unquote oversubscribed. So this is not a solicitation for money, but I want to talk about the deal, why he's excited, what's going on in lending, because I suspect lending is not as easy as it once was. But Jonathan, you found a deal, you've done the work, you're excited about it. I thought we should share now that it's oversubscribed.
Yeah, so this is going to be my second hotel deal. I think some probably people have heard me talk about the first hotel deal that we did, which is in upstate New York. We're just wrapping up the renovation on that deal. It's really exciting. Like things are coming together. I'm going to go up and visit again in a couple of weeks and kind of see them put the final touches on at least the first set of rooms that are going to be done. But we're reopening on June 1st, so that's really
That's
cool.
right around the corner.
It's right around the corner. We're going to have to do some kind of like networking event there, for folks
Yeah,
who want
that'd be
to
fun.
come out to the Finger Lakes in New York. But yeah, so that's wrapping up. And I really like this space because what I discovered with that first deal is that there are, independent hotel owners throughout the country who are ready to retire and they want to sell these assets. This is basically their retirement fund. Their kids don't want these things.
Yeah.
And very oftentimes they don't really know what to do with them in terms of they don't really know how to sell them. They don't know how to position themselves for sale. And they've run these assets in such a way that they're very undervalued compared to their intrinsic value. And so, for instance, one of the things that we found on the first deal and now the second deal as well is that these owners are running the hotels as if it were the 1980s, right? Even if they're on Expedia, they're still taking reservations manually. They're concerned about overbooking, or they're concerned about getting overwhelmed because oftentimes they're operating these, on a skeleton crew. They do half the work and they have their housekeeping crew and that's kind of it. So they're very concerned about having too many guests because they don't want to get overwhelmed. And they've oftentimes owned these assets for years. They have no mortgage. So, their cost structure is pretty low and they run it as a lifestyle business essentially, right? So so that also means that they don't have additional capital to reinvest in the assets. So they're kind of slowly running down, which means that they can't get the best room rates. It's sort of like the whole thing is in a very slow downward kind of spiral, right? And what's needed is for somebody to come in who can inject capital into the property, modernize it, and bring it up to a modern standard. And what I'm finding is that there are still not a lot of people out there who will do this, right? And so that means that the buyer pool is very limited right now for these assets, which is great, right? There's very little competition for them. And I can, with my multifamily background, raise the money, find the people to do the work, revitalize the asset, and then sell it, after it's all made shiny and new, then sell it to somebody who's prepared to run it, but really can't do all of the rehab and everything. And so it's very much like where the multifamily market was when I started, with the number of mom and pop operators out there. And I'm just seeing a lot of opportunity, just low hanging fruit in terms of just, getting the operations right, but then, a little harder work in doing the rehab and then sort of really repositioning it. But, one of the interesting things that we found, my partner and I in this, simply by going in there, even in a hotel in its present state, which is often not terrific, you can basically increase the revenues by 20% just by modernizing the reservation, just the reservation system.
Okay.
So this new hotel that we found, and we're under contract now, so I can tell you, more details about it. It's in Bennington, Vermont. It's 77 room hotel. It's a very nice asset. It's right downtown. It's basically the only hotel in town that you can walk to the downtown where the restaurants are. It's a 3-season area, so they get summer, fall, and winter business because of summer vacations, fall is foliage, and winter is skiing. The only time it's really slow is during what's called mud season up there, which is like when the thaw happens and it's just kind of gray and muddy. But other than that, it's the kind of consistent business throughout the year. There's a large regional hospital nearby. There's a college in town. So there's a lot sort of driving this, and the owner kind of fits the profile of, someone who has intentionally run the asset in a limited capacity because that's all he has the capacity for. And frankly,
that's interesting.
Yeah, and also he's doing fine for a small town where the cost of living is low. He's making as much money as he wants to make to support his lifestyle. He doesn't need to maximize the profits of the asset, right? But as a result, what that means is that we're buying it at a lot below its kind of intrinsic value. And so our plan is, like I said, the first thing we'll do is we're going to turn on the marketing engines and automate the reservation system, which we know will provide an immediate boost. Actually, when we did this in Watkins Glen in New York last summer, July and August were the 2 highest revenue months in the history of the hotel.
Just by turning on reservations.
Just by doing the reservations and marketing right. So, and that's without raising the room rates. That was before we spent any money on improving the asset. Just by stopping them from taking manual reservations. So we expect
when did this guy in Vermont, how long has he owned it? 20 years?
At least. I mean, he inherited it from his parents who built the hotel.
Oh, so it's been in the family forever.
It's been in the family, since the 60s when it was built, or when the first piece of it was built. And it hasn't had any substantial renovations since the 1990s. Right. So he's kept it in very good shape, which is something else I like. I mean, the hotel is actually kind of serviceable as it is, but it's just out of date,
it's out
of style. But the asset itself is very nice. I mean, and it has beautiful gardens, and you've got pickleball courts, and they've got sort of extra land that can be potentially, at the very least, for putting up sort of like big tents for outdoor weddings and stuff. But perhaps, we're thinking about maybe glamping or, stuff like yurts or things like that people would just find, tiny houses, something that people would just find cool to be able to stay in. Right. So cool. We'll sort of figure that out. But I'm very excited about this because, as we were talking about in the last segment, I love a bargain, right? I love a bargain. And I know that, the hotel is probably worth, run properly, probably worth in its current state, like double what we're paying for it. Right. So,
and that's before you turn anything on.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's if it's run correctly, right? If it's run to maximize.
So you got a 50% discount just for being a good operator.
Yes. Yeah. Just for changing the, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the way that the seller is operating. He operated it the way he chose to because of lifestyle reasons.
Yeah, and so his lifestyle. Yeah, that's great.
So, but someone else who is like me, who is not doing this as a lifestyle, right? I'm not living there, running it as my job, but for someone who's coming in with investors and is going to maximize the asset, just by running it sort of efficiently like a modern hotel, we could probably double the value just by doing that. And I think ultimately with the renovations that we put in, we'll probably triple the value of the asset. Wow. So
you think you are putting this together, envisioning an exit? Do you think in 3, 5, 7? You have any idea?
Yeah, something like 5 to 7 years. At the very least, kind of recapitalizing it so that our investors get paid back and get paid their profits, and then we either bring in a new set of investors or we figure out, we create a fund to own these assets or something. Not really sure what the exit will be. I do kind of have a vision of building a brand of hotels. So that, but I have to work on sort of what that means for the investors and how, because the investors always want their money back in 3 to 7 years, right? So we sort of have to figure out how we could do that, do right by everybody,
Yeah.
And then, but still, maintain control of the asset. So that's to be determined how we square that circle, but
Yeah.
that's part of
Well,
the
it's
long-term.
it is exciting. I'm obviously on your buyers list and did sign up for the whatever it's called, early bird or whatever you're
Early
calling
bird
it. So
list. Yep.
yeah, so I look forward to throwing a little bit of capital into that. But let's talk about the lending, right? You've been doing this for a
Mm.
while. I'm guessing lending is very different today than maybe your last go around. LTVs are different. I mean, just I'm guessing it's harder. Is it harder to get lending today?
Well, I mean, it's harder, but it's also harder. It's harder for me to tell why it's harder because it's
Oh.
also a different kind of asset, right? So,
Oh, okay.
so it's the lenders I'm used to using are kind of like the agency lenders and CMBS
Right.
lenders who deal with multifamily. The hotel lenders, it seems to be more of a local bank,
Oh,
or
interesting.
regional bank kind of crowd. So what now we had underwritten this originally really conservatively where we were going to just get a loan for the purchase price and we're going to raise all the equity for the rehab ourselves.
Okay.
And then the banks we started having conversations with said, well, hey, look, we'll do 60% of the total cost, right? Which
Okay.
is which is
Which is
great.
better than
Actually,
you thought
way better. I mean, I thought I was going to get 60% of the purchase price and raise
of the asset.
100% of the equity
Got
for
it.
the rehab,
Got it.
right? And still it penciled out really well on those terms. But then obviously 60% of the whole cost, increases the returns quite a bit. And
Sure.
then, but then the other interesting thing that's happened is we've also like SBA lending has come into the picture as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So apparently SBA loans are a pretty common thing to use to buy hotels because they're
I had
operating
no idea.
businesses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there
had
are
no
bit.
idea
Yeah.
either. So SBA loans are so coming into the picture. And the interesting thing about SBA loans, the fees are very high, right? They're
Yeah.
really, really high, but the terms are better than what we've been hearing from traditional banks so far. So they're willing to go up to 75% and lower interest rates and longer amortization periods. So the fees, it may, I've
They work
underwritten.
out.
Well, oh, it actually works out better. Although
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I want to take 75% just
Yeah.
because I it's setting a pretty high hurdle for paying back
Yeah.
the loan. And
Yeah.
and I
Of
just,
course.
even though I really have confidence in this deal, what I'm just, I have confidence in this deal like as it's stabilized, but while we're getting there, I want to make sure that I have maximum flexibility and I'm not putting the deal at risk. So
Sure.
if it does wind up being an SBA loan, I think interestingly enough, the negotiation may be we don't want 70, like
All right.
we
We'll
want
take
less.
65 or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
we want less than that. And they may be like, well, we always do 75%. Like, so, the other thing that's been interesting to me, that this is a sort of a new thing I've discovered is that I thought that the banks would be happy with us raising all of the money for rehab ourselves.
Okay.
However, from the bank's perspective, it's like they want to lend you rehab costs so that then they have some control over the rehab.
Ah, yes, because they'll do it in tranches or
Yeah,
whatever.
so they want to have they want to be able to like come and inspect the rehab
Yep.
and see that you're doing a good
Correctly.
job, right?
Yeah.
Rather
That makes
than,
sense.
yeah, which makes sense, but it's sort of they're putting more money at risk, so it kind of doesn't make sense either. So I don't know, sort of how at the end of the day. However, getting more proceeds is good. So I'm quite comfortable with 60% of
Yeah.
loan to cost on this, and we'll just see now whether we're going to get 60 or we're going to get more.
Yeah.
But
So at
in
this
any
point,
event,
you're still doing due diligence inspections. It could still blow up based on what you find. You're not signing this week.
no, I mean we don't have to close until August. Our hard money doesn't go hard until the end of July. So we are really in the beginning of the due diligence period on this.
Yep.
And of course, once the lender is, we've gotten a term sheet with the lender, then it'll sort of kick into high gear because we've done basically our due diligence on the asset already.
Okay.
We've been there, we've looked at it, we've looked at the financials such as they are. We've had the guy who's going to manage the hotel has been to the asset to look at it and kind of give us his opinion on it, and all that has checked out. So the real issue is the things like environmental, which I don't anticipate there being any environmental issue. There's, the structure, which seems fine, but we need the engineering and title. So, and the appraisal, but I'm not worried about this thing appraising for, what we're purchasing it for. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, it's fun to see you excited. It's fun to see you dig in. I like the idea of building a brand and all of that. We've talked about your first deal. So, Jonathan, have some fun. I look forward to whatever the next steps are in this. So, where can people find you?
Yeah. So, well, since we're talking about investing, I mean, it may be too late to get into this deal, but we plan on doing more. So, you can come to Two Bridges Asset Management. Just Google it is the easiest way to find us. Two Bridges Asset Management LLC. There's an investor page that you can fill out and get on our list. And if you just want to join the conversation about apartments or hotels or whatever, come over to Apartment Investors Club on Facebook and just join that group.
Awesome. Thank you so much.